Well, hey there. Look at that. You came back. You know what? I was just talking about you guys. I was like, you know what? I was telling to all my friends, all my thousands of friends, I was like, these folks come and they watch the videos and they like them and they subscribe and they write comments. I mean, they're just the greatest. So I'm just really, really happy to see you today. Thank you for coming back. All right, so this is another edition of my series, Tomb of Annihilation, but better. Today we're talking about Orolunga. But before we get into that, I realize that I don't very often kind of explain what these videos are about. The but better part are things that I changed or added or switched around a little bit from the Tomb of Annihilation as written. This is kind of just this is what I did. Here's some ideas for you. My hope is that they're interesting to you, that maybe they spark some ideas. And really it's for my players that I ran through this campaign so that they know all the hard work and all the stuff that came out of my brain to make it so much fun for them. So today we're talking about Orolunga. So this is a pretty cool location. It's a very vital location in the campaign. This is where there's an oracle. The players don't really know when they start what that really means, but they keep getting hints here and there in different places that there's some kind of powerful being that lives here in this jungle ziggurat that could be able to help them in their quest to figure out what the death curse is and what they need to do about it. So the way Orolunga is written in the book, it's a big, stone ziggurat that's out in the middle of the jungle. It's hard to find, but it is odd that it's still there and not completely overgrown. It's a very mystical location. Like, you can't fly to the top of it. There's lots of weird magical barriers around it. You can't teleport closer to it. The only way you can get to the top of it, is up the stairs. It's got 2 flights of stairs that kind of go up the face of the pyramid. And it's a lot like the Mayan ruins and things like that you find in Mexico and the Yucatan Peninsula and things like that. So it's a really cool location and very lore specific, very flavorful for Chult. The problem that I have with Orolunga as it's written is the challenges that it takes to get to the top of it are just not fun. They're just very much afterthoughts. When I read it up and I read some other things online, it was just like, we need to make this more exciting. Like, they're really about to get a pretty huge boost and a lot of valuable information on their quest that they've been looking for. And I just didn't want them to find it so, haphazardly and so, without any kind of challenge. So let me kind of explain a little bit how things work first, and then I'll tell you the things that I changed. All right, so in the book, it's written that there are 3 levels to get up to the top of it, and each level has a different staircase on it. And each of these staircases have varying little puzzles or little things that they have to get past. So the first one is just covered in vines and really in thorns. As the player characters walk up, the thorns kind of crowd in, and then they start taking damage, and then it's difficult terrain and they're taking damage, and they just can't get past it. There's no, if they burn it or if they cut it or whatever they try to do, it instantly comes back and keeps damaging them. The smart people would then run back down because they can't go back up. In the book it says if they run back down, then they notice a Twinga, which is one of those cute little elemental creatures that kind of run around in Chult. And they see it, and it's just kind of sitting there, and then it pulls out an orchid, like a special colored orchid, and walks up. And as it walks up the stairs, all the thorns kind of part, and it walks all the way to the top. The players are always going to be like, well, I guess we got to find us one of those orchids. So the way that you do that is, according to the book, you search in the jungle for 30 minutes. There's no check, there's no look at a certain place. With an hour of searching, they'll find it. If they have a higher nature or wisdom, or not wisdom, nature or survival, then they find it faster. But it's just game time. So either they search and they find it quick, or they search and they find it in an hour. They all find their orchids. They walk up the stairs. Everything happens just fine. That's the first challenge as written. The second one, the stairs are crumbling. So as they walk up them, they start turning into gravel and falling and slipping, and they slide down. And they can't get to the top. Every time they get close to the top, everything turns to gravel and they slide back down. So that happens a couple times. And then, hey, look, there's another chewinga. And it's got the orchid and a feather. Like a specific, I think it's a red feather. And so the players have to go search for a feather. And it says, eventually they find the feather. Everybody finds a feather. And when you do that, you can walk straight up the gravel and you're at the top without any problems. The third challenge is all of the stairs are covered with snakes, poisonous snakes, and they're just slithering all over the place. You have to walk up through it, and nobody can avoid being bit. Nobody has resistance to poison. You can kill as many of them as you want. They all come right back. So again, this is an impenetrable stairway full of poisonous snakes. If they give it a shot for a second, they're just going to get bit. They come back down, and guess what they notice? I bet you don't guess what they notice. There's a chewinga sitting right there, and he's got a feather and an orchid. And he lays down on his stomach right in front of the snakes, and one of the snakes crawls straight into his mouth, and then the chewinga slithers its way to the top. Slithers up the stairs, gets to the top level. The players see that, and they're kind of, what the heck was that? And so they're meant to lay there on the ground, let a snake come and slither right into their mouths. This one does have a bit of a savings check. You have to do a save that gets harder and harder as you go. But once they do that, then they slither up to the top of the stairs, and then they're at the top. And then from that point, they've done it. There's a bunch of goofiness because at the top there's like an empty temple, so it's like a big stone room at the very top of this pyramid. The way the book writes it, if you have the feather and the flower, when you walk into that room, then you're in a palatial area, and that's where you meet the oracle and all that kind of stuff. But there's also weird things if you don't have the flower, if you don't have the feather, or if you go in and come out, then it's gone. Or if you go in together, there's a lot of weird things about it disappears if you don't do it exactly right. And there's no hint or way or reason for that. So that, I'll just give you a preview. I didn't worry about that kind of stuff. If they made it to the top, let them into the temple. From there, the book just says that they can ask the bone servant questions. She wants them to go and find Ommu. She gives them a lot more information on where Ommu is, and she wants them to go take care of him, take care of Rosnisi, and take care of the death curse. So it's even written in there that if players decide not to do that, like if they don't listen to her, that they need to continue this quest and go to Ommu, then they can actually be put under a mind spell or a geesh and be forced to do it, which nobody likes that. So anyway, that is how the book is written for Orolunga, and you can kind of see why I didn't really want to keep it that way. So here's what I did, and some of these ideas I got from other folks online, but really most of them I'm pretty sure I came up with, unless it's a Mandela thing and I totally stole it from somebody. But anyway, I think I thought of most of this stuff. So first, which I thought was a great idea, is when they get to the ziggurat, it's completely surrounded by a canyon, a really deep, deep canyon, and across it is a bridge, a stone bridge. Now there are two bridges in the book, in the areas of Chult. One of them is just a bridge that kind of goes over a really deep chasm. There's nothing to it. It's in a big, beautiful gorge. There's like fossils and things on the walls and stuff. So that's just kind of a bridge flavor. But there's one that's called Ataaz, which means bridge in Chultan, of course. Muhahah. This one is kind of fun. So this bridge spans the whole, it's a stone bridge, and there are monkey statues all over it, carved into it. And then there are actual live monkeys that live under it, and they're constantly making their monkey noises, and it sounds like laughter. And it echoes off the canyons, and they get a kick out of it, and they think it's funny. And then When I reread this or last night, it made me laugh because it said at some point they're laughing and screaming and carrying on makes such an echo that it comes back in this really, really loud, kind of almost sinister laugh, and it freaks the monkeys out, and they kind of are quiet for an hour or something, and they get right back into it. I had this bridge that I just took Ataaz Muhahah and put it here over this chasm to get to the ziggurat. It's just kind of a fun little, extra little trial to get over. So the way this works is in the center of this bridge, there's a big stone statue of a Chultan warrior. All along the sides of the bridge, there is an inlay of a maze. You'll see maze motifs all over the place in this campaign. Ummm, the deity that supposedly created Chult and created the dinosaurs, and that was the patron deity of Chult until he left, loved mazes. So there's tons of maze artwork and maze themes and motifs throughout the campaign. So the way it works is you have to follow the maze. It's a groove. It's like a finger-sized groove, and you have to follow it with your hand all the way across. And that's the safe way to get across the bridge. If you don't do that, or if you miss something, or if you just pass by without doing that, then the statue comes alive and it's a stone golem, which, like I said, players are probably a little bit higher level at this point, but a stone golem's still going to kick their trash. It's a deadly enemy, and there's even it describes a skeleton below, just kind of at the foot of this statue, that is just crushed. Parts of it are just dust. So a little bit of foreshadowing on what happens with this. If the players figure that out, they can get through it. They put their finger through the maze and get across. They're home free and they made it. I'm going to do a recap series where I go through all of our campaigns and do a recap of how it went, just to give you an idea of how all this stuff worked in with practical human players. And there were some pretty exciting moments on here, and some pretty thoughtful ways to get around it and to solve the problem, really. Across the bridge, they come to the base of the ziggurat. Now, I noticed in rereading the book that the ziggurat that I kind of described and utilized in my campaign was more of a spiral ziggurat, with the path leading up, kind of going around the outside as opposed to going straight up the front of it. That was one change that I made, mostly because there's I'll show, you'll see in a second, a couple of the places they go into are kind of rooms, and I didn't really know how to do that with straight up stairs. Anyway, whatever reason I had in my brain that wasn't conscious, I envisioned it more of a spiral ziggurat as opposed to just a step pyramid kind of thing. My version of Orolunga also had 3 challenges. So the first challenge is, as they start walking up one of the layers, one of the spirals of this giant stone building. They come into a room, like there's a door and a hallway, and it just beckons, goes into a dark corridor or whatever, and they're apprehensive, but they hear in their minds, enter. Even though it's a spectral, strange, eerie voice, they feel comforted by it, so they feel like it's worth their while to go inside. They go in, the door closes. What they see is there are 4 boxes along one stone wall, and then on the other end there's a big scale. All right, so envision it kind of poked up like this, and there are 4 spots on the arm of the scale going this way, and then the other side of the one that's low, the low end of it, there's actually a giant stone like relief map of Chult. So they can tell exactly where they're at, the mountains and the place they can see where the ziggurat is. So it's basically all of Chult that's down at the bottom end of this lever, of this scale. And it's kind of down in darkness. So there's kind of an element where, even though the room they can see fairly well, this thing is in shadow. It shouldn't be, but it is in some sort of magical shadow. So the map and the peninsula of Chult is dark. So of course they go start opening the boxes. So first of all, they open up and there's some beautiful flowers that pop out, and they're so gorgeous and so aromatic that everyone just, a smile comes to their face. It's almost like they're singing. It's just a beautiful moment for them. And then after a moment, that shrivels down into a rock, like a little stone token that has a flower scrawled on it. So the next box they open up, a gorilla jumps out, like just huge, all four arms and teeth. Everything is just, terrifying and growling and screaming at him. And they all go back to protect themselves. And then it too kind of coalesces down into a little stone with a gorilla on it. The next one is they open it up and it just reeks of decay and damp, humid decay. And these mushrooms all grow out and they grow down the sides of the box and just rotten nastiness. And then they coalesce into a rock, little mushroom on it. And then finally the box they open, an Almirage comes out. And if you see my top 5 monsters, the Almirage is one of the cutest, really the cutest creature drawings, paintings, that I've ever seen. Just a beautiful little bunny. It's got a little unicorn horn on it. And it just looks like, you just want to have him on your lap forever. So it jumps out, smiles, turns into a little rock. All right, so now we have this scale. There's 4 spots on it. They got to figure out what to do. So they start kind of putting them on in different orders. Nothing happens. So they do it one way, nothing happens. And they, however you try it, there's one specific way that it's got to go. And when they finally figure it out, so it goes flower, Almirage, gorilla, mold. And then in their minds, when they figure that out, this spectral voice comes to them and says, gives them a big spiel about it's important for you to know the circle of life. Everything's connected. And without that balance, then, life wouldn't be possible. And the scale kind of goes up, into a balanced state. And the darkness that was around Chult when it was not, before the balance was struck, is gone, and it's shining and glittering and gorgeous. So with that, they've passed the challenge. The door opens up. Second challenge is they walk a little further around and come to another spot that goes up. So it's kind of an enclosed stairway that goes up. And once they go into this room, the lights kind of come up, and the whole stairway is covered with disgusting spiders, like huge, hairy, nasty spiders, and then scorpions. So big scorpions, red scorpions, and they're just undulating. They're just all over this stairway, all the way to the top of it. And it's a long enough stairway that even the fastest character couldn't dash to the top of it. They'd have to do a couple times, and they could realize real quick that they're not going to be able to make that. So they're stumped for a second, and then they notice down at the bottom there's two little burrow holes, and a snake comes out, a little unassuming snake, and eats one of the spiders, and then it climbs to the top, and all the other creatures kind of move away from it, and it gets to the top. So they deduce that they gotta eat one of these spiders. So I think it was the barbarian in our party that did it, but anyway, picked up one of the spiders and ate it, and was instantly polymorphed into the snake. And it slithers to the very top without any problems. So when that happens, then they all do it, and then they eventually get to the top. Now, this one's a little bit like one of the rules is written ones where they have to, the snake, they have to eat the snake is what they did, and then they slither to the top unmolested. What I liked about this was it was a little more terrifying and a little bit more disconcerting to have to eat a spider. Spiders are gross. And I loved the psychological problem that it was going to cause to just instantly be turned into a snake and then be able to slither to the top. So I actually did I can't remember what kind of save I did, some kind of wisdom save or charisma save or something like that. And if they failed it, they take just a bit of damage, not a lot of damage, but just for the whole, the psychological terror of instantly becoming a snake and then just wriggling up through all these, to the snake, giant spiders and scorpions. That gets them to the top of this one. So now we're to the third trial. This is another room. They go inside, and I had 6 players. So I had 6 chairs, really comfortable looking chairs. And everybody sat down in them and instantly just felt relaxed. Like their worries were gone. they could actually sit down and be safe and not worry about anything. So at this point, the voice comes to him and says, "You've started on this epic task that is, most perilous, and in order for you to get through it, you're going to need to know your companions. You need to know them, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and be able to form a team that can work together to solve this problem. And without that knowledge, without that ability to understand and to support their weaknesses and to give them advantages, take advantage of their strengths, you got to know them." So at this point, it goes into a player versus player attack, basically arena. So they're in these chairs. In front of them, all of a sudden lights up this huge arena that wasn't there before. And 2 by 2, their essences, like I made it very clear that it wasn't their actual bodies that were fighting, their essences would arrive in the ring and they would have to attack each other and gladiator style. They had all their powers, they had all their weapons, all their abilities and everything like that, but it wasn't doing permanent physical damage to their actual bodies, if that makes sense. I didn't make this to actually wound them, but it's always kind of fun to do things like that, to do some player versus player, because you play as allies for so long. I kind of like to pit them against each other when I can. Luckily, I had 6 players, so it was easy to kind of pair them up. And the way I did it, I kind of just scrolled it down, I rolled it, is I paired them all the way up, and each one of the 6 had to win their pairing. And if they didn't win it, then they'd get paired up with another. So a lot of times it went straight down, like the person that needed to win won. But if, say, character A is going up against character B, and A has to win, they don't know this, by the way. I didn't tell them anything about you have to win, or whatever. It was always just 100% go after each other. So if A is supposed to win but B wins, then A will come back in a second and C against C and have to try to beat C and D and E and F. So each player had to win at least once. So that way the barbarian, and if the wizard is up against the barbarian and the wizard has to win, the barbarian takes one shot and he's just cut in half, then he'd get another chance to try to fight somebody else or give it a shot. So really this was more of a fun exercise for the players to just kind of duke it out with each other. You always want to, in the back of your head, you got, I'm the most powerful in this party. I'm going to be the one that opens a can on everybody. So that was just fun. So once they finally got that together, then they were teleported out, and the voice again said, you've learned what you need to learn here, and I would like now to meet you. So this is where they get to the very top, and there's a little open stone temple room up there. And at first it looks like it's just an empty room, and when they walk in, then it transforms into there's big cushions and mats and fans, and there's food, and they find the oracle, which happens to be a naga, which is a big scary snake that has sort of a human type face. But she comes out and talks to them, and welcomes them, congratulates them on making it through, gives them a little bit of exposition about the area and the land and things like that. But in my campaign, I wanted them to be able to ask her a question. So she said, I will allow each of you to ask me a question, any question you'd want, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. Three of my characters asked questions about their personal quests. One was looking for gems and asked about, where's the most magnificent gem on the continent. One is looking for a type of berry, a bush that he's got to find. She told him where that was. One was trying to find a tree, a special tree. She basically told him where that was. But then I had a few others that asked more general campaign-related questions. One talked about Rasnisi. One asked about, the location of the tomb. Or actually, I think it was more, where's the source of the death curse? And she said, in the Forbidden City. Gave them some really vague directions. It's between the volcano and the other thing. But she did tell them things like, it's a sunken city, so it's hard to find, and it's near the volcanoes and things like that. And then another asked about teleportation circles, because they were tired of trudging through the jungles, I think. So they were asking, where are the nearest teleportation circles, things like that. And then in the rules as written, it says to give each player a trinket, I think it is, or a supernatural charm of some kind, and it gave a page and a table in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I wanted to do something different. I really like making magic items in my campaigns. I like to build things that kind of feel organic to the setting, and then things that could help them in a unique way or accentuate some kind of skill that the characters have. I like to build custom things that work. So the idea of this boon, I called it, but this this gift that she was giving them. So you basically get this amazing boost in combat. So when you use it, that first round after using it, your attack or your roll or whatever it would be a critical hit. The next round, your next turn, basically, you'd have a 50% chance of getting critical. And then I think it went down to 15 and then to 5. So it was this huge boon to any kind of situation where they were getting attacked. And they could choose when they did it. They only got to use it once. It was just one of those kind of cool, back pocket secret power things that you choose wisely. And, I've played a lot of these games too, and you get a boon like that. You get a gift that has such power, and you almost want to hoard it. You want to keep it because you never know. You don't want to waste it on some tiny encounter, but who's to say what is a tiny encounter, especially in this campaign where, death is around every corner. So I thought that was cool, and there were they had some great uses for it as they went. So after that, after they'd gotten their answers, they'd gotten their secret gift, then they everything flashes and they end up down at the bottom again, at the bottom of the ziggurat, and realizing that they had done it. They had found Orolunga. They were able to talk to the oracle, and they had some really, really good direction on the rest of their campaign. Well, if you look at the old clock here on my wrist, that's all the time we had for today. I sure hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video. It just makes my heart feel good. So, even if you don't really care, click that. It makes my heart feel better. Subscribe if you want. That makes me feel even better. And comment, tell your friends about it. Write a letter. Heck, write a letter. Just address it to Vicious Talkery. I'm sure they'll be able to find me. That's me signing off, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.